Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you or someone you love has recently been handed a chronic kidney disease or CKD diagnosis, you probably know exactly how overwhelming it can feel. Suddenly, the very food on your plate seems like this incredibly complicated math equation, and the list of restrictions, well, it can feel completely daunting. But today, we're going to clear up all that confusion. This is your straightforward, empowering guide to understanding exactly how your diet interacts with your kidneys and how you can actually use nutrition to protect them.
So, here is the absolute most common question patients ask. How do you actually eat well when you have kidney disease? It's so easy to look at a CKD diet as a punishment, or like you're just mourning the loss of your favorite meals. But we really need to reframe that right now. Changing your diet is actually one of the most powerful tools you have to take back control of your health. Think of your plate as your armor. By just understanding a few core principles, you can absolutely still enjoy delicious, deeply satisfying food while actively slowing down the progression of the disease.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. To master the diet, you first have to understand the organ itself. Your kidneys are your body's heavy-duty internal filtration system. They are working around the clock to filter out waste, ditch excess water, and perfectly balance the vital minerals in your blood. But when you have CKD, this filtration system gets impaired. It's kind of like a kitchen strainer that's getting clogged up. And that is exactly where proper nutrition steps in. By eating right, you're essentially doing some of the heavy lifting for your kidneys, reducing their overall workload, stabilizing your blood pressure, and keeping dangerous toxins from building up in your system.
All right, to really help our kidneys out, we've got to learn the rules of the game. And that means learning how to manage what we call the big four culprits. We're talking about sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and protein. Now, I want to be super clear here. We have to restrict these not because they're inherently toxic or bad for a healthy body, but simply because your kidneys currently lack the strength to process them in large amounts. When your kidneys can't filter them out, these elements build up in your bloodstream and trigger a whole cascade of other health issues. So the crucial magic number to remember here is 5 grams. That is the absolute maximum amount of salt you should be consuming in a single day, which breaks down to about 2 grams of sodium. You see, when kidneys are damaged, they lose their grip on controlling sodium levels. And when sodium goes up, your body starts holding onto water. That excess fluid retention, that's what leads to those swollen ankles, feeling short of breath, and dangerously high blood pressure. So cutting out canned foods, heavily processed meats, and those super salty sauces is literally your first major line of defense.
Next up, we have potassium. Usually, this mineral is great. It helps your nerves and muscles function. But for a CKD patient, excess potassium can actually cause really serious heart issues. You've got to watch out for what we call the potassium villains. We're talking foods like avocados, bananas, potatoes, oranges, and cooked spinach. I know, right? Usually these are the good guys, but they pack dangerously high potassium levels for impaired kidneys. Instead, you get to load up your plate with potassium heroes. Think blueberries, pineapples, crisp bell peppers, cauliflower, and arugula. These are going to give you amazing flavor and all those great vitamins without stressing out your heart.
And that brings us to our third and honestly kind of sneaky culprit, phosphorus. Phosphorus is tricky because it is in almost everything we eat. But here is the secret. Your body actually absorbs way less phosphorus from natural whole foods than it does from processed foods, which usually have these artificial phosphorus preservatives just dumped into them. By simply switching away from processed meats, certain dairy products, and even whole bran, and focusing instead on fresh, natural ingredients, you can easily protect your kidneys from a really dangerous phosphorus overload.
So what should your plate actually look like? Transitioning to a kidney-friendly lifestyle is all about focusing on what we call the golden foods. The foundation of your daily diet should be built right on fresh, low-potassium vegetables paired with very careful, high-quality protein choices. Remember, it's not about eating nothing. It's about eating smart. Let's look at exactly what these golden foods are. Get ready, because here is your new superfood shopping list. Cauliflower and cabbage, those are incredible low-potassium staples. Craving a little crunch? Swap out everyday peanuts for macadamia nuts because they have way less phosphorus. For your high-quality protein, you really want to lean on things like sea bass and egg whites. Oh, and shiitake mushrooms, they make this brilliant meaty substitute that gives you great plant protein and fiber. And perhaps the biggest trick of all, since you're cutting back on salt, heavily use garlic, fresh herbs, and olive oil to make your meals deeply aromatic and wildly flavorful.
Now listen up, because this is absolutely crucial. While you are actively restricting certain minerals, you absolutely cannot starve your body of energy. The daily target you're aiming for is 25 to 35 kilocalories per kilogram of your ideal body weight. Maintaining this caloric intake is vital. CKD patients are actually at a huge risk for malnutrition. mainly because these dietary changes can feel so restrictive at first that people just kind of stop eating enough. But you need this energy. It keeps your immune system strong and prevents your muscles from wasting away.
Let's move on and see how this all builds over time, because this is where the diet gets highly personalized. You see, the dietary rules shift drastically depending on your specific CKD stage. Because CKD is a progressive disease, what works today might not work tomorrow. The hydration advice or the protein limits that are perfectly healthy for someone in stage 1 could actually be dangerous for someone in stage 4. You have to continually align your diet with your current medical phase.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how your relationship with protein totally evolves across the different stages. Breaking down protein creates waste, right? Waste that your kidneys have to filter. So in stages 1 and 2, you're eating a fairly normal amount of protein. But in stages 3, 4, and 5, right before dialysis, we have to strictly limit protein down to about 0.6 grams per kilogram of body weight just to take the immense pressure off those kidneys. But look at the drastic shift later on. Once a patient actually starts dialysis, the machine removes so much protein from the blood that you have to flip the script and increase your intake significantly. Crazy, right?
So if you're in the early stages, specifically stage 1 or 2, I want you to take a deep breath. Your diet really isn't heavily restricted just yet. You don't need to stress over strict protein limits, though you absolutely should be choosing high-quality sources like lean meats and egg whites. Your main job right now is simply establishing those foundational healthy habits. Get that salt under 5 grams a day, cut back on saturated fats, keep your blood pressure in check, and drink plenty of water. Doing these things right now actively slams the brakes on the disease's progression.
But fast forward to the later stages, like stage 3 and 4, and the rules kind of flip, especially when it comes to fluids. While early-stage patients need a ton of water, damaged kidneys in the late stages simply cannot process liquids fast enough. Drinking too much water then leads directly to severe swelling and scary heart complications. So the medical rule of thumb for late-stage fluid restriction is actually measuring your urine output from yesterday, and then adding just 300 to 500 milliliters. That becomes your total liquid allowance for today.
All right, let's take all these medical rules and bring them right to the dinner table. What does a day of eating actually look like? Well, for breakfast, you might have a warm bowl of glass noodles with a modest 50 grams of chicken. Moving on to lunch, picture a nice small portion of rice alongside some sautéed squid and boiled zucchini. Need a snack to keep you going? Try a simple, comforting, boiled sweet potato. And for dinner, a little rice, a controlled portion of beef sautéed with onions, and some low-potassium greens. It's structured, sure, but it is still fulfilling, delicious, and wonderfully familiar.
Okay, here is a highly actionable tip for you. And honestly, this is a literal game changer. If you need to hit your daily calorie goals, but you desperately want to keep your protein and potassium low, you need to master smart starch swaps. Regular white rice actually hides a lot of unexpected protein and phosphorus. So by limiting your white rice to around 150 to 200 grams a day and swapping it out for awesome alternatives like glass noodles, sweet potatoes, taro, or cassava, you are brilliantly maintaining your energy levels while keeping all that unwanted protein and minerals completely off your plate. As we wrap up this explainer, there is one absolute non-negotiable rule you must follow. Always partner with your healthcare team. What we've covered here is a powerful framework, but your body's entirely unique. Your individual blood tests, your specific potassium levels, and any underlying conditions like diabetes mean that your doctor and a clinical dietitian absolutely must be your co-pilots. They're the ones who will help personalize your final, day-to-day menu. Understanding your diet is the very first major step to taking your power back from chronic kidney disease. You are no longer just reacting to a diagnosis. You are actively managing it with literally every single bite you take. So I want to leave you with a question to act on right away. What will you change in tonight's dinner to protect your kidneys? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and here is to your health.